Hi, this little video is to cover a very specific requirement to use WebFOCUS to store output of reports within an external location. So by default, the system is built to deliver reports and results back via the browser, but you're also going to be able to create reports for batch reporting and distribution. To do so, we can use our system to redirect output from the server to an external source. To do so, we're going to go to prepare and manage data in here. And that concept of application folders usually allows you to read and write files from the server itself. But there's a very, very hidden secret in here that allows you to redirect those files to external sources as well. Those external sources could be Google Drive, AWS S3 buckets, SharePoint, or the WebFOCUS repository, or any other relational database that is linked to WebFOCUS. In my sample, I'm going to use the FTP directory structure here. So that's going to allow me to write output to an external location using the FTP protocol. To start, actually, I can link to an existing connection here. So I need an existing connection first. So first step to get my connection is go back to get data and configure an adapter that links to that external source. So depending on the system you want to connect, you have to create your adapter here. So if you want to write to SharePoint, you need a SharePoint adapter. If you want to write to Google Drive, you need the Google Drive adapter. If you want to write to AWS, you need the AWS S3 adapter. For my sample, I need an FTP adapter. FTP adapter itself doesn't exist as an adapter, but it's part of the fixed format file in here. So if I go to that folder, I can easily add connections in here. I can drop that one. So we're going to create one from scratch. So let's remove it. And to add a fixed format file connection, just go to plus. And in here, I can select my location. So I'm going to call it my FTP server. And you're going to write to an FTP system. Or can use FTP or SFTP protocol in here. I'm running a local FTP server. So on my system in here, I can connect it from here. So go to the FTP system, use my login. So we can look at the content, and there's a folder on that FTP called FTP_app. That's what I want to use. It's currently an empty directory, so we're going to use it to write data there. So let's go to let's go to the FTP_app folder, and the user is WebFOCUS. The very secret password is WebFOCUS as well in here. So I'm going to be able to configure this adapter right now. So I have it in here. I can test the connection. You see it's connecting. Actually, I get an error message here, which just says there's no test folder in here. So it's trying to find a folder test, which doesn't exist, but that's okay for now. I have write access, everything working as expected, everything up and running. Of course, we can look at that one. So let's go for the server interface for a very short second. That's my FileZilla FTP server. So if we test it in here, we're going to see the communication with the server. So I'm connecting, looking into the folder FTP app, and I'm disconnecting again. All I need to configure in here. So that's step one. Let's close that one. Actually, in here, we can now map that folder. So to map the folder, we go to manage, go to external repository, FTP, and we can now link to an existing connection. And there's my FTP connection. Actually, all I need, so just hit OK in here. And that's my connection. And now I can map it as an application folder. I can add it to app path if I want to. I don't want it. So that's what I'm going to use. The application folder is called my FTP as well. I can choose whatever name I want to. So click on OK. That's what I need. So created it. It's in there. And I have my FTP connection. There's my FTP connection. I can double click it in here, and it's open up that location in here. I can use it as like any other location in my system. So I can now create something in there. Let's create a very simple test file in here, or text file. That's just going to be my test. Save that one. I'm going to call it my test txt. And it's created in that folder in here. So I got my folder in here. We could easily use it. So just refresh it and see there's my test stored in that folder. To prove that it's there, we of course can look into the interface, or we can use our FTP server. Oh, well, yeah, disconnected. So let's connect again via FTP. Log in with my secret user. Look into the folder. We have to go to the FTP_app folder. And there's my test.txt file that I just created. So very easy to load files in that folder. How do I use it now? Remember, we've got my FTP as a folder. So I can now, within our system, easily create content and store that content into that folder. So go to my retail folder, my retail sample reporting folder in here. So in here, we can go to the properties. And in here, we're going to see a bunch of folders. So there's an old one. So use the my FTP, save it. And I got my FTP folder mapped to that folder here as well. So how to use it now? So let's create some content. So I can easily create whatever content I want to create. So let's go for Infosys. We could also go for Designer or for Code. And I'm going to create a very simple, report using WebFOCUS reporting capabilities in here. So of course you see the my FTP folder. There's nothing stored in there, so it's not going to be anything useful now. So we go to the retail database. We're going to use the retail database. We select something from here. So let's go for product category, product subcategory, go to revenue, go to gross profit, add some reports in here. Of course, I can format that report the way I want it to be formatted. So I'm going to repeat the sort values. And now I can, instead of putting it to my desktop or to my browser, I'm putting it into the my FTP folder, and I'm storing it as a comma delimited file. So it's called my file 1. Comma delimited with titles, save it. I'm just creating that location. So there's nothing in there yet until I run that report. It's now creating my file. So moving back to my system, we can now very easily start. Now that we have the file stored onto our FTP server, we could of course see the file in here. So go to my FTP. We have to reconnect. Disconnected. Let's look at the structure again. Move to our FTP_app folder. And there's my file CSV folder. File, of course, sorry. Moving back to our interface, we can of course see that file in our structure in here. So there's my folder. Of course, we can look at that folder again, look at the content. So just refresh it in here. And there's my file stored on that FTP server. Of course, you could store any file type within that system. So going back to my report, we can save that report as well. My FTP, save that report. And now I could do whatever I want to do with that little file. So let's go in there, close it from here, go back over here, sort by file. There's my report, the one I just created. Of course, I can do whatever I want to. I can change the code of the report. That's this very simple syntax. So of course, I can change the output format, for example, to be HTML or be PDF or whatever I want it to be. So run it. I'm going to change it to HTML, whatever I want to create. Run it. And it's going to store those files within that location. So if we move back to the web console, I don't want to re-log in, log out. So let's going to see there are all my elements. They're called my file. Of course, they got different output formats now that are stored. You can see it, the icon in here, which is going to be kind of, yeah, hard to read. So of course, we can add the type and the extension in here. So you're going to be able to see that we got several different output formats. And keep in mind, it's not limited to FTP. You could use any different external report repository type here to store those files. So storing files into an AWS S3 bucket is going to work the same way, like storing it into a SharePoint location or into a Google Drive folder. That's it for that little session. Hope you enjoyed.